Humans make things up like patriarchy and Barbie just to deal with how uncomfortable it is.
Before you continue with this video, I'd like to first point out the obvious, which is that this is just my opinion about the movie and its characters. You don't have to agree with me at all. This is just a video essay over an aspect of the movie that I personally have found to be overlooked in most videos I've seen online. Now, let's get started.
One day, the Kens will have as much power and influence in Barbie Land as women have in the real world.
This simple yet effective line completely changed the way I saw this movie. Barbie is the biggest movie of 2023 and is easily one of the most discussed films of this decade. Over the months since the Barbie movie came out, almost every video essay and review I've seen of this movie always boils down to people calling it either a woke man-hating movie or a movie discussing a woman's struggles in the real world. In the middle of all this discussion is Ken, played brilliantly by Ryan Gosling. Ken is largely a side character in the beginning of the movie, but by the end he becomes one of the major characters who contributes a lot to the story and its themes. One of the main things people talked about in regards to Ken as a character was how he represented men and the problems regarding them. The character is mostly boiled down to either a bitter, insecure man-child who took things too far, or as a man who no longer wanted to live and die by Barbie Land rules. Someone who wanted more, but never found a proper way to achieve it. Someone whose needs were largely dismissed. Whichever depiction you use for him, chances are he remains a representation of the male demographic to most. While I can see why he comes off as such, I must say I think Ken does not represent just men. One of the things unique to Barbie Land is that it's not just an exaggerated version of the real world, it's also the opposite version of it. Barbie Land is like a fairy tale world where the genders have been swapped. When you take this detail into consideration, this line from the movie carries on a different meaning.
One day, the Kens will have as much power and influence in Barbie Land as women have in the real world.
Barbie, just like any movie, is subjective. It has many themes that can be understood in different ways by different people. From a coming-of-age story to an underdog one, to even slice of life, the movie had many ideas and themes. As for me, my video will exclusively focus on the Ken character and the theme I noticed from his story arc. I'd like to point out that this is not necessarily the theme of the movie, but just one of many themes that I personally analyzed from it. This is about Ken and how his character's journey so closely resembles a different journey that took place in the real world. From their uprising to the pushback they got, the Kens in this movie represent both genders of the real world and their situation in society. If you think I'm reaching too far with this theory, consider this. The movie itself points out how the Barbie world is the reverse gender-swap version of the real world on multiple occasions.
Women hold all major positions of power, control all the money. Basically everything that men do in your world, women do in ours. Everything is backwards here.
Everything's almost like reversed here.
I'm just Ken. Anywhere else I'd be a 10.
1 to 10.
I think I'm a 10.
I'm a 10 as well.
Yeah, definitely a 10.
A 10.
Pink felt like I'm ready to bend.
I'm a 10, so I pull in a Ken.
Like,
There are several scenes and plot points that show this similarity, and for the sake of clarity and simplicity, I'm going to divide them in 3 major stages: Ken's history, Ken's uprising, and finally Ken's realization. These 3 stages of Ken's story resemble major aspects of feminism. Let's begin where the movie does. The movie starts with Barbies having the prominent importance in their society, with Kens almost being second-class citizens. This is not that different from women who back in the days were married off early in their teens without much education. They didn't have any jobs, so they had to depend on men who took care of the finances, while the females were there to cook and clean. Regardless of what you think about this traditional system, it's not hard to see why the lack of choices and options created some friction later on. Kens in the Barbie world are not all that different in terms of authority and importance. Barbie in this world are the ones who hold most of the power, which creates a system where Kens think of themselves as not as valuable, a feeling many people can share regardless of gender. But women especially felt in the past times when they didn't even have the right to vote or were not allowed to have any jobs. While we are far from living in those times, Ken does share some similarities to them when you realize something as small as someone asking him time is such a big deal for him and other Kens.
Oh, you failed me! Out there, I was somebody. And when I walked down the street, people respected me just for who I am. One lady, she even asked me for the time. No way. Way.
Outside that, Kens also don't seem to have any jobs, education, and not even their own car, let alone a place to live in.
That's because Ken is totally superfluous.
Unless I've missed something, I think it's not false to say that Kens don't own any properties in Barbie Land, except maybe the skates and their clothes. It's unclear where they even live, unless it's at the beach.
Where do the Kens stay?
I don't know.
Kens in this movie have even less to do and live for than many women from back in the days. At least they had children to take care of and a family to spend time with. Ken here doesn't even get to kiss Barbie or live with her.
You're Ken.
But it's Barbie and Ken. There is no just Ken. I only exist within the warmth of your gaze.
Barbie has a great day every day, but Ken only has a great day if Barbie looks at him.
Now fast forward to when Ken gets to his second stage and similarities grow intensely with the modern times of the real world. Once Ken comes back to the Barbie land and brings patriarchy with him, he starts giving all the other Kens a power of their own, a choice to be more, to do more than just exist for Barbies.
I don't want you here. And this is my dream house. It's Barbie's dream house. It's not Ken's dream house, right? And it's girls' night.
Personally, I found the Ken's patriarchy to be less of a patriarchy and more of a Red Pill movement. Just like many in Red Pill, Ken's story is about a bunch of men who had negative experiences with women in their lives and then went overboard to establish their importance. They had good intentions, even if the execution was lacking.
Now, if you'll excuse me, this is my Mojo Dojo Casa house. It's not Barbie's Mojo Dojo Casa house. Right? How's that feel? It is not fun, is it?
While Barbie does portray Red Pill through Kens, their journey is structured in a way that it also resembles some of the movements from the opposite gender as well. I especially found some similarities with the Me Too movement.
No, hold on a minute.
The Me Too movement was mostly due to the sexual abuse women had to go through the hands of powerful men. None of the Kens in Barbie Land are shown to have been physically abused, let alone sexually. Not that a PG-13 blockbuster about a children's doll would have allowed it anyway, especially since it's overlooked by the studios directly. Having said that, the power imbalance still remains there. The Me Too movement was for the safety, security, and the freedom of women from potential oppressors. Likewise, the patriarchy in this movie starts to give all the Kens a voice of their own. It makes them feel heard and appreciated. Given that the movie is more of a parody satire than straight up heavy drama, we don't know for sure how bad Ken's situation really is or could have been. We're left to assume based on what we're shown. Same thing also implies to the Barbies later on. When Me Too first started, it gave the victims a way to speak out against all their abusers. But after some time, such movements got some unintended consequences when certain people started misusing it in awful ways. This is where we get to the third and most important stage. In the real world, while movements like Me Too and others helped many victims to fight against the abusers and even punish them, it also brought a whole host of accusations, and given the sheer number of them, it was obvious some of them were bound to be fake.
Believe women. It's like all of them. I'll give you 87%, all right? But that last 13% that keys your car, lights your shit on fire.
From the infamous Amber Heard situation to all the times people, especially men, got falsely accused of such things and ended up losing everything, from their wealth, family, to even their lives. The worst, however, was the fact that it was so much easier for many women to falsely accuse men of crimes that they didn't even commit. As a result of this, both men and women became more and more afraid to hire women in general or exclude them from social interactions due to greater fear of accusations. After all, an accusation, even a false one, is more than enough to destroy a person's life and reputation. For many men in the real world, the problem is that while most women will not ruin your life, there are always some that can. No matter how hard you try, if many famous multimillionaires aren't safe, what chance do you have? It's not like you can just look at a person and analyze what kind of character they have. If that was the case, many, if not all of Ted Bundy's victims would still be alive. Just like Me Too in the real world, the patriarchy in the Barbie land gave people more choice and power, but not all of them used it the right way. When Kens took over Barbie land, it brought its own sets of challenges that they weren't fully prepared for.
Weren't we supposed to vote today?
What?
Change the Constitution.
Oh, that was today, wasn't it? It was hard-running stuff. I didn't love it. To be honest, when I found out that patriarchy wasn't about horses, I lost interest anyway.
People just are not always the best at making great decisions. Once Barbies get their homes back, the Kens return and we get what I think is one of the most meaningful moments of the movie.
You're not your girlfriend. You're not your house. You're not your mink.
Beach.
Nope, you're not even Beach.
And it also shares similarities with one of my favorite movie quotes.
You are not your job. You're not how much money you have in the bank. You're not the car you drive. You're not the contents of your wallet. You're not your fucking khakis. Things you own end up owning you.
Maybe all the things that you thought made you you aren't really you.
Barbies don't just take the Barbie land and then leave Kens the way they were. They try to get to the middle ground and try to make it a better place for both.
No Barbie or Ken should be living in the shadows.
Or Alan.
I'm really sorry I took you for granted. Not every night had to be girls' night.
Thank you for saying that.
It's still not perfect, of course, but it's a good start. The frustration and stress the mother character shares about being a woman, as hand-fisted and in your face as it was, is also not that different from how many men feel. Most of the lines can be directed at both genders, with only a few tweaks, because after all, both genders face their own set of difficulties.
You have to be their mommies, but not remind them of their mommy. Any power you have must be masked under a giggle.
If a girl wants a guy who's older, it's a preference. If a guy wants a girl who's younger, it's creepy and immature.
You have to find a way to reject men's advances without damaging their egos, because if you say yes to them, you're a tramp, but if you say no to them, you're a prude.
6 figures, 6 feet, and 6-pack abs. But she can have 6 bodies, 6 guys in her DMs, and be 60 pounds overweight.
We have to always be extraordinary, but somehow we're always doing it wrong.
If a woman commits a crime, she goes to prison, but he goes to prison for 63% longer.
You have to be thin, but not too thin. And you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy.
If a girl doesn't want to date a short guy, it's a preference. If a guy doesn't want to date a girl that's overweight, he's an asshole who's not focused on the things that matter.
You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean.
If a girl wants a guy who can take charge, it's a preference. If a guy wants a girl who will submit to his lead, he's, you guessed it, misogynistic.
You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time.
Women parent better. Men are just glorified babysitters.
You have to answer for men's bad behavior, which is insane, but if you point that out, you're accused of complaining.
If a girl sets a boundary, it's empowering. If a guy sets a boundary, it's controlling.
Never be rude, never show off, never be selfish, never fall down, never fail, never show fear, never get out of line. It's too hard.
We're the middle children of history, man. No purpose or place. We have no great war, no great depression. Our great war is a spiritual war. Our great depression is our lives.
And it turns out, in fact, that not only are you doing everything wrong, but also everything is your fault.
We've all been raised on television to believe that one day we'd all be millionaires and movie gods and rock stars, but we won't. We're slowly learning that fact, and we're very, very pissed off.
The first time I saw the Barbenheimer memes, I was far more interested in Oppenheimer than Barbie. I only saw Barbie because of the amount of hype it got. Barbie turned out to be a whole lot more complex and deeper than I expected. Either that or I'm extremely pretentious. While Barbie is nowhere near as good as Gerwig's previous movie, it's still a good movie that establishes her as a great and capable director, unlike some others. One of the main themes for me that Barbie presented was that it's not an either-or scenario, it's both. Both characters had to grow individually for the betterment of their lives. It's a simple message that's sadly very often depicted online as man versus woman, when in reality, it's man and woman.
Maybe it's Barbie and it's Ken.
Ken is me.
And I'm Barbie.
It was only during my rewatch when I noticed how the Barbie movie is a much harsher critique on women than men.
That and we all call her Weird Barbie both behind her back and also to her face.
Either you're brainwashed or you're weird and ugly. There is no in between.
Sing it, sister.
Where did you learn to drive like this? There was this guy. His dad? Yeah, it was Dad.
You play on their egos and their petty jealousies and you turn them against each other.
I mean, some of these scenes that are meant to relate with women are straight up savage.
This is the lowest I've ever been, emotionally and physically.
A doll. Just representing a woman.
The new depression Barbie. She wears sweatpants all day and night. She spent 7 hours today on Instagram looking at her estranged best friend's engagement photos. She's going to watch the BBC's Pride and Prejudice for the 7th time until she falls asleep. Anxiety, panic attacks, and OCD sold separately.
I'm like you now, ugly and unwanted.
Thanks.
They're weird and dark and crazy. Everything you pretend not to be.
I am. I'm weird and I'm dark and I'm crazy.
Just imagine if a male director had put such scenes in his movie instead of a well-renowned female one.
You're a doctor! I like being a helpful decoration.
But everybody hates women. Women hate women and men hate women. It's the one thing we can all agree on.
Olena Tyrell would be proud of these two. That's it for now, guys. This is the first video essay I've ever made, and I'm still learning on how to make videos like this in general. Writing an essay and making it into a video is a lot more challenging than I expected, since I'm more of a fiction writer. But this was a mission I chose to accept in order to learn and execute new ideas of content. I'm sure there are things I've missed that I could have used to flesh out my points better, or maybe even found contradictory evidence to my theory. Let me know what points you agree and disagree with. I would like to see the discussion in the comments section. Also, if you're into domestic psychological thrillers, do check out my novel, New Address. It's available in some local libraries as well. A quick heads up though, it's a very disturbing and graphic story, so only give it a read if you have the stomach for it. Thanks for watching this far, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.